Greetings and salutations. It is, of course, Monday evening. I hope this finds you all peaceful and serene, preferably with a warm cup of tea and preparing for bed. If not, then let this be a wonderful preamble to whatever evening adventures you are up to. Fireside Tailes with Wolfgang, Volume 7. Thought tonight we would start off with a little bit of poetry. Some may know that the Broadway musical Cats was based from the work of a poet named T.S. Eliot. And I thought that it would be a nice recurring theme to read various snippets each week from T.S. Eliot's Practical Cats. The official full title is Old Possum's Book of Practical Cats by T.S. Eliot. I'm already laughing because I love this one so much. This is the first in the entire book, as you'll very soon see. This is The Naming of Cats by T.S. Eliot. The naming of cats is a difficult matter. It isn't just one of your holiday games. You may think at first I'm mad as a hatter when I tell you a cat must have 3 different names. First of all, there's the name that the family use daily, such as Peter, Augustus, Alonzo, or James, such as Victor or Jonathan, George or Bill Bailey. All of them sensible, everyday names. There are fancier names, if you think they sound sweeter. Some for the gentlemen, some for the dames. Such as Plato, Admetus, Electra, Demeter, but all of them sensible, everyday names. But I tell you, a cat needs a name that's particular. A name that's particular and more dignified. Else, how can he keep up his tail perpendicular, or spread out his whiskers, or cherish his pride? Of names of this kind, I can give you a quorum. Names such as Monkstrap, Quaxo, Quercopat, such as Bomballerina, or else Gellilorum. Names that never belong to more than one cat. But, above and beyond, there's still one name left over, and that is the name you will never guess. The name that no human research can discover, but the cat himself knows and will never confess. When you notice a cat in profound meditation, the reason I tell you is always the same. His mind is engaged in rapt contemplation of the thought of his name. The ineffable, effable, ineffable, deep and inscrutable, singular name. One of my favorite silly memes I've seen in the last few years floating around on Facebook, I suppose, was this big-eyed kitty cat looking straight at the camera, kind of cockeyed, and the meme underneath says, "Ever wonder what your cat named you?" So, let's say hi to whoever's in the chat. Good, Terry's here. It was Terry's birthday yesterday, so happy birthday, Miss Terry Smith. And Lovely to see Miss Blonde Avenger is in. And Diana Nicole, greetings. Claire Foster, whose birthday was a few days ago, last Friday, as I recall. And hello, Miss Kelsey Blaine Gibson. I hope the tree trimming noises weren't too terribly disruptive for you. Angelica B., thank you for joining us. Dari, lovely to see you. Of course, my mom, Pam. Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. Michelle Vanderpool is here. Good. We can go on now that I see Melissa Catano is saying hello. And we will go on with a little bit. Ruth Sanchez. Good. Where's your pipe? Funny, I was just discussing the need for a pipe right before we started the show here, and that's very cute that Olive is saying hi on the chat as well. It's adorable. So, is Malika? Oh, good. Malika is here too. Hello, Miss Malika. And Robin, I missed. Oh, good. Yeah, there she is. Hello, Robin. Miss Robin Hood is with us. Wonderful. So, want to go on with a little piece of a chapter of Carl Sagan's epic work, Cosmos. Chapter 11, The Persistence of Memory. Carl Sagan showing us the poetry of science. In the great cosmic dark, there are countless stars and planets, both younger and older than our solar system. Although we cannot yet be certain, the same processes that led on Earth to the evolution of life and intelligence should have been operating throughout the cosmos. There may be 1 million worlds in the Milky Way galaxy alone that at this moment are inhabited by beings who are very different from us and far more advanced. Knowing a great deal is not the same as being smart. Intelligence is not just information alone, but also judgment, the manner in which information is coordinated and used. Still, the amount of information to which we have access is one index of our intelligence. The measuring rod, the unit of information, is something called a bit, for binary digit. It is an answer, either yes or no, to an unambiguous question. To specify whether a lamp is on or off requires a single bit of information. To designate one letter out of the 26 in the Latin alphabet takes 5 bits. That's 2 to the 5th power, or 2 times 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, which equals 32, which is more than 26. The verbal information content of this book is a little less than 10 million bits. The total number of bits that characterize an hour-long television program is about 10 to the 12th. The information in the words and pictures of differing books in all the libraries on Earth is something like a 10 with 16 zeros bits, or 10 with 17 zeros. Of course, much of it is redundant. Such a number calibrates crudely to what humans know, but elsewhere, on older worlds where life has evolved billions of years earlier than on Earth, perhaps they know 10 to the 20th bits. That's, again, 10 with 20 zeros after it, or 10 to the 30th, Not just more information, but significantly different information. Now's the fascinating part. Of those million worlds inhabited by advanced intelligences, consider a rare planet. The only one in its system with a surface ocean of liquid water. In this rich aquatic environment, many relatively intelligent creatures live, some with 8 appendages for grasping, others that communicate among themselves by changing an intricate pattern of bright and dark modeling on their bodies. Even clever little creatures from the land who make brief forays into the ocean in vessels of wood or metal. But we seek the dominant intelligences, the grandest creatures on the planet, the sentient and graceful masters of the deep ocean, the great whales. This is where it starts to sound like The Hitchhiker's Guide, but that's exactly what makes The Hitchhiker's Guide so profound, is because of how much The Hitchhiker's Guide sounds like Cosmos. Whales. They are the largest animals ever to evolve on the planet Earth. Larger by far than the dinosaurs. An adult blue whale can be 30 meters long and weigh 150 tons. A meter, by the way, is a little more than 2.5 feet. Many, especially the baleen whales, are placid browsers, straining through the vast volumes of ocean for the small animals on which they graze. Others eat fish and krill. The whales are recent arrivals in the ocean. Over 70 million years ago, their ancestors were carnivorous mammals who migrated in slow steps from the land into the ocean. Among the whales, mothers suckle and care tenderly for their offspring. There's a long childhood in which the adults teach the young. Play is a typical pastime. These are all mammalian characteristics, all important for the development of intelligent beings. The sea is murky. Sight and smell, which work well for mammals on land, are not much use in the depths of the ocean. Those ancestors of the whales who relied on these senses to locate a mate or a baby or a predator did not leave many offspring, so another method was preferred by evolution. It works superbly well and is central to any understanding of the whales. That is the sense of sound. Some whale sounds are called songs, but we are still ignorant of their true nature and meaning. They range over a broad band of frequencies, down to well below the lowest sound a human ear can detect. A typical whale song lasts for perhaps 15 minutes, the longest about an hour. Often, it's repeated identically, beat for beat, measure for measure, note for note. Occasionally, a group of whales will leave their winter waters in the midst of a song and 6 months later return to continue at precisely the right note, as if there had been no interruption. Whales are very good at remembering. More often on their return, the vocalizations have changed. New songs appear on the cetacean hit parade. Very often, the members of the group will sing the same song together by some mutual consensus, some collaborative songwriting. The piece changes month by month, slowly and predictably. These vocalizations are complex. If the songs of the humpback whale are enunciated as a tonal language, the total information content, the number of bits of information in such songs, is some 10 to the 6th bits. Again, that's a 10 with 6 zeros behind it. which is about the same as the information content of the Iliad or the Odyssey. Really big, thick Greek tomes here. We do not know what the whales or their cousins, the dolphins, have to talk or sing about. They have no manipulative organs. They make no engineering constructs, but they are social creatures. They hunt, swim, fish, browse, frolic, mate, play, run from predators. There may be a great deal to talk about. The primary danger to the whales is a newcomer, an upstart animal, only recently, through technology, become competent in the ocean, a creature that calls itself human. For 99.99% of the history of the whales, there were no humans in or on the deep oceans. During this period, the whales evolved their extraordinary audio communication system. The finbacks, for example, emit extremely loud sounds at a frequency of 20 hertz, down near the lowest octave on the piano keyboard. So, you look at a piano, like the farthest key on the far left, way down there. Whales are usually talking to each other kind of around some of those notes. Such low frequency sounds are scattered or scarcely absorbed in the ocean. So this is similar to how when you're trying to sleep at night and you can hear the neighbors arguing through your walls, and all you can really hear is and then the woman says something back, and it's kind of like it's only the low notes that really make it through your walls. It's only the low notes that the whales even bother to talk through. That's the point here. Now, the American biologist Roger Payne has calculated that using the deep ocean sound channel, two whales could communicate with each other at 20 hertz, essentially anywhere in the world. One might be off the Ross ice shelf in Antarctica and communicate with another in the Andalusians. For most of their history, the whales have established a global communications network. Perhaps when separated by 15,000 kilometers, their vocalizations are love songs, cast hopefully into the vastness of the deep. What we've learned since Sagan wrote this, the only bit that we've been able to translate, and it might even be premature to limit whales and dolphins in their communication to describe what they do as a language. What we've been able to decipher is that dolphins, at the very least, seem to have patterns of whistles, i.e. they seem to have names for themselves and each other. And the crazy thing is, sometimes little collections of dolphins, we have no idea what the hell else they are saying, but we can, through computers, recognize a particular pattern. That is how another dolphin that's not even there for the conversation refers to itself. And other dolphins repeat that pattern in what seems to be a conversation about somebody that's not even there. And there are beings in the world that naturally exist that don't make buildings or bombs or New York, but that live with and among us, that might just be as intelligent as us in different ways. On to a short story. The short story is called The Last Leaf by O. Henry. In a small part of the city, west of Washington Square, the streets have gone wild. They turn in different directions. They're broken into small pieces called places. One street goes across itself one or two times. A painter once discovered something possible and valuable about this street. Suppose a painter had some painting materials for which he had not paid. Suppose he had no money. Suppose a man came to get the money. The man might walk down the street and suddenly meet himself coming back without having received a cent. This part of the city is called Greenwich Village. And to old Greenwich Village, the painters soon came. Here, they found rooms they like, with good light, and at a low cost. Sue and Johnsy lived at the top of a building with 3 floors. One of these women came from Maine, the other from California. They had met at a restaurant on 8th Street. There they discovered that they liked the same kind of art, the same kind of food, the same kind of clothes. So they decided to live and work together. That was in the spring. Toward winter, a cold stranger entered Greenwich Village. No one could see him. He walked around, touching one person here and another there with his icy fingers. He was a bad sickness. Doctors called him pneumonia. On the east side of the city, he hurried, touching many people, but in the narrow streets of Greenwich Village, he did not move so quickly. Mr. Pneumonia was not a nice old gentleman. A nice old gentleman would not hurt a weak little woman from California. But Mr. Pneumonia touched Johnsy with his cold fingers. She lay on her bed almost without moving, and she looked through the window at the wall of the house next to hers. One morning, the busy doctor spoke to Sue alone in the hall where Johnsy could not hear. "She has a very small chance," he said. "She has a chance if she wants to live. If people don't want to live, I can't do much for them. Your little lady has decided that she's not going to get well. Is there something that is troubling her?" "She always wanted to go to Italy and paint a picture of the Bay of Naples," said Sue. "Paint, not paint. Is there anything worth being troubled about? A man?" A man?" said Sue. Is a man worth it?" "No, doctor, there is not a man." "It is a weakness," said the doctor. "I will do all I know how to do, but when a sick person begins to feel he's going to die, half of my work is useless. Talk to her about new winter clothes. If she were interested in the future, her chances would be better." After the doctor had gone, Sue went into the workroom to cry. Then she walked into Johnsy's room. She carried some of her painting materials, and she was singing. Johnsy lay there, very thin and very quiet. Her face was turned toward the window. Sue stopped singing, thinking that Johnsy was asleep. Sue began to work. As she worked, she heard a low sound again and again. She went quickly to the bedside. Johnsy's eyes were wide open. She was looking out the window and counting back. 12, she said, and a little later, 11. and then 10, and 9, and then 8, and 7, almost together. Sue looked out the window. What was there to count? There was only the side wall of the next house, a short distance away. The wall had no window. An old tree grew against the wall. The cold breath of winter had already touched it. Almost all its leaves had fallen from its dark branches. "What is it, dear?" asked Sue. 6, said Johnsy, in a voice still lower. "They're falling faster now. 3 days ago, there were almost 100. It hurt my head to count them, but now it's easy. There goes another one. There are only 5 now." "5 what, dear? Tell your Sue." "Leaves on the tree. When the last one falls, I must go too. I've known that for 3 days. Didn't the doctor tell you?" "Oh, I never heard of such a thing," said Sue. "It doesn't have any sense in it. What does an old tree have to do with you or with your getting well? You used to love that tree so much. Don't be a little fool. The doctor told me your chances for getting well. He told me this morning. He said you have very good chances. Try to eat a little now, and I'll go back to work, and then I can sell my picture, and then I can buy something more for you to eat and make you strong." "You don't have to buy anything from me," said Johnsy. She still looked out the window. "There goes another. No, I don't want anything to eat. Now there are 4. I want to see the last one fall before night. Then I'll go too." "Johnsy, dear," said Sue, "will you promise me to close your eyes and keep them closed? Will you promise not to look out the window until I finish working? I must have this picture ready tomorrow. I need the light. I can't cover the window." "Could you work in the other room?" asked Johnsy coldly. "I'd rather be here by you," said Sue, and I don't want you to look at those leaves." "Tell me as soon as you have it finished," said Johnsy. She closed her eyes and lay white and still. "Because I want to see the last leaf fall. I've done enough waiting. I've done enough thinking. I want to go sailing down, like one of those leaves." "Try to sleep," said Sue. "I must call Berman to come up here. I want to paint a man in this picture, and I'll make him look like Berman. I won't be gone a minute. Just don't try to move until I come back, okay?" Old Berman was a painter who lived on the first floor of their house. He was past 60. He had had no success as a painter. For 40 years he had painted without ever painting a good picture. He had always talked of painting a great picture, a masterpiece, but he had never yet started it. He got a little money by letting others paint pictures of him. He drank too much. He still talked of his great masterpiece, and he believed that it was his special duty to do everything possible to help Sue and Johnsy. Sue found him in his dark room, and she knew that he had been drinking. She could smell it. She told him about Johnsy and the leaves on the vine. She said that she was afraid that Johnsy would indeed sail down like the leaf. Her hold on the world was growing weaker. Old Berman shouted with anger over an idea. "What?" he cried. "Are there such fools? Do people die because leaves drop off a tree? I've never heard of such a thing. No, I will not come up and sit while you make a picture of me. Why do you allow her to think of such a thing, a poor little Johnsy? She's very sick and weak, said Sue. The sickness has put these strange ideas into her mind. Mr. Berman, if you won't come, you won't. But I don't think you're very nice. Oh, this is just like a woman, shouted Berman. Who said I'll not come? Go, I'll come with you for half an hour now. I've been trying to say that I'll come. God, this isn't any place for someone so good as Johnsy to lie sick. Someday I shall finish my masterpiece and we shall all go away from here. God, yes. Johnsy was sleeping when they went up. Sue covered the window and took Berman into the other room. There, they looked out the window fearfully at the tree. Then they looked at each other for a moment without speaking. A cold rain was falling, with a little snow in it, too. Berman sat down and Sue began to paint. She worked through most of the night. In the morning, after an hour's sleep, she went to Johnsy's bed. Johnsy, with wide open eyes, was looking toward the window. I want to see, she told Sue. Sue took the cover from the window. But after the beating rain and the wild wind that had not stopped through the whole night, there was still one leaf to be seen against the wall. It was the last on the tree. It was still dark green near the branch, but at the edges, it was turning yellow with age. There it was, hanging from a branch, nearly 20 feet above the ground. It is the last one, said Johnsy. I thought it would surely fall during the night. I heard the wind. It'll fall today, and I shall die at the same time. Oh, dear Johnsy, said Sue. Think of me if you won't think of yourself. What would I do? But Johnsy did not answer. The most lonely thing in the world is a soul when it is preparing to go on its far journey. The ties that held her to friendship and to earth were breaking, one by one. The day slowly passed. As it grew dark, they could still see the leaf hanging from its branch against the wall. And then, as the night came, the north wind again began to blow. The rain still beat against the windows. When it was light enough the next morning, Johnsy again commanded that she be allowed to see. The leaf was still there. Johnsy lay for a long time looking at it, and then she called to Sue, who was cooking something for her to eat. I've been a bad girl, said Johnsy. Something has made that last leaf stay there to show me how bad I was. It's wrong to want to die. I'll try to eat now. But first, bring me a looking glass so that I can see myself, and then I'll sit up and watch you cook. An hour later, she said, Sue, someday I hope to paint the Bay of Naples. The doctor came in the afternoon. Sue followed him into the hall outside Johnsy's room to talk to him. The chances are good, said the doctor. He took Sue's thin, shaking hand in his. Give her good care, and she'll get well. And now, I must see another sick person in this house. His name's Berman, a painter, I believe. Pneumonia, too. Mike is an old, weak man, and he's very ill. There's no hope for him. But we can take him to the hospital today. We'll make it as easy for him as we can. The next day, the doctor said to Sue, She's safe. You've done it. Food and care now. That's all. And that afternoon, Sue came to the bed where Johnsy lay. She put one arm around her. "I have something to tell you," she said. "Mr. Berman died of pneumonia today in the hospital. He was ill only 2 days. Someone found him on the morning of the first day in his room. He was helpless with pain. His shoes and his clothes were wet and cold as ice. Everyone wondered where he had been. The night had been so cold and wild, and then they found some things. There was a light that he had taken outside, and there were his materials for painting. There was paint, green paint and yellow paint, and look out the window, dear, at the last leaf on the wall. Didn't you wonder why it never moved when the wind was blowing? Oh my, oh dear, it's Berman's great masterpiece. He painted it there. He painted it there that night that the last leaf fell." Yeah, Michelle, I would love to do audiobooks. That has always been a dream of mine. I would love that very much. I'm not honestly really sure how to do that. A friend of mine who watches, another Kelsey, who never takes part in the chat, sent me a link to a website that introduces authors and voiceover artists. So far, haven't heard anything back. So if anybody out there in the internets has any connection, I'd love to do audiobooks. It's kind of like someone saying, "Wow, you should star in movies." Cool. That's a nice dream. A nice dream that I would love to make true. To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell, who lived from 1621 to 1678. Had we but whirled enough in time, this coyness, lady, were no crime. We would sit down and think which way to walk and pass our long love's day. Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find. I by the tide of Humber would complain. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow. 100 years should go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest. An age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. For lady, you deserve this state. Nor would I love at a lower rate. But at my back I always hear time's winged chariot hurrying near. And yonder, all before us lie deserts of vast eternity. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing songs. Then worms shall try that long-preserved virginity, and your quaint honor turned to dust, and into ashes all my lusts. The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. Now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on thy skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, now let us sport us while we may, and now, like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour than languish in this slow, chapped power. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasures with rife through the iron gates of life. Thus, though we cannot make our sun stand still, yet we will make him run. Oh, you're thirsty, aren't you, buddy? He's looking for my tankard amongst the tea. Give me 5 seconds. Here, bud. Here. Have this. Here. Here you go. Here you go. Right there. Water for the beast, and tea for the bear. Let's see. Oh, I see the chat has progressed. By the way, if you would be so kind, I see there are currently 24 watching and 16 likes. If you would be so kind as to click the little thumbs up, it helps in the algorithm extraordinarily. And we have at least 18 minutes more to go. So if you would share this, I should have asked that earlier on, but if you'd share this to whatever social media that you do, Facebook or other, that would also be greatly appreciated. Pinned at the top is the Venmo info. Virtual tickets are, of course, always appreciated. And I'm sorry to hear that Olive left. She was no doubt a bit, no doubt a bit troubled by where it was going. And oh, Terry, a half schnauzer, half corgi would be a schnorgy, and that sounds ridiculously cute. It just, sounds ridiculously cute. Oh, and yeah, that's thank you, Mom. That's a good idea. If you save these to a playlist, if you have your YouTube account that you're signed into, you can, if you click save, it'll automatically default to watch later. You can also, you can probably just put it in that, but you can also make yourself a watch list, a playlist of Fireside Tales with Wolfgang. Say it to that playlist, and those sorts of things get the algorithm's attention. Christina, what is that looks cool, like that we gotta tell Paulie? I didn't quite understand. I'm sure it was relevant to a comment missing from my screen now. How you doing, buddy? Good? Right. The tips are indeed pinned. That's a new feature that Facebook was doing that YouTube doesn't seem to be able to do until, I don't think I literally ever saw it until tonight. So yay for Facebook, yay for YouTube updates. Better, buddy? Yeah. So, this next one. Here you go, bud. Ooh, he loves those. Right, Sexy Jesus playlist, sure. Excuse me. Oh, yes, Sexy Jesus playlist, sure, let's go with that. Speaking of Sexy Jesus playlist, if you guys didn't see what they edited together on the fly this last Saturday night at the end of Paulie's Picnic, the Ballad of Jack Sparrow, I think that's what it was called, or maybe it's the Song of Jack Sparrow. Ballad, is it Ballad? Anyway, that was it was a Michael Bolton bit on Saturday Night Live from like a decade ago that apparently I just never saw. And Paul sends me this email, says, "Hey, can you record the Michael Bolton part real quick?" And I gotta say, I am that was like I was blown away with what that turned into. I just laid down something really quick, and they put that together in real short order, and I expected it to be cute at best. It turned out brilliant. So, the next time Paul wants to do something like that on the fly, I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt. I'll do that sort of thing again. I never knew. I never knew I was like Michael Bolton and I shared like the same like golden range of our. I guess that would be tenor. Yeah, it was just kind of musically just right in my comfort zone. It worked. Several people, Christina said I'm obsessed with it. Several people have private messaged me that they've just like watched it again and again and again. You can watch the video as its own standalone video now on the Audacity network. As soon as the show was over, I had to go back and like watch it again, like I think 2 or 3 times even, because it was just, it was really well done. Okay, so going on. This is a story called Salvatore by Somerset Maugham. I wonder if I can do it. I wonder if I can do it. I knew Salvatore first when he was a boy of 15, with a pleasant but ugly face. A laughing mouth, carefree eyes. He used to spend the morning lying about the beach with next to nothing on, and his brown body was as thin as a rail. He was full of grace. He was in and out of the sea all the time, swimming with the clumsy, effortless stroke common to the fisher boys, scrambling up the jagged rocks on his hard feet, for, except on Sundays, he never wore shoes. He would throw himself into the deep water with a cry of delight. His father was a fisherman who owned his own little vineyard, and Salvatore acted as nursemaid to his 2 younger brothers. He shouted to them to come inshore when they ventured out too far, and made them dress when it was time to climb the hot, vine-clad hill for the frugal midday meal. But boys in those southern parts grow apace, and in a little while, he was madly in love with a pretty girl who lived on the Grande Marina. She had eyes like forest pools, and held herself like a daughter of the Caesars. They were affianced, but they could not marry till Salvatore had done his military service. And when he left the island, which he had never left in his life before, to become a sailor in the navy of King Victor Emmanuel, he wept like a child. It was hard for one who had never been less free than the birds to be at the beck and call of others. It was harder still to live in a battleship with strangers instead of in a little white cottage among the vines. And when he was ashore, to walk in noisy, friendless cities with streets so crowded that he was frightened to cross them, when he had been used to silent paths in the mountains and the sea. I suppose it had never struck him that Ischia, which he looked at every evening, it was like a fairy island in the sunset. He would look at it every evening to see what the weather would be like the next day, or what Vesuvius, pearly in the dawn, had anything to do with him at all. But when he ceased to have them before his eyes, he realized in some dim fashion that they were as much a part of him as his own hands and feet. He was dreadfully homesick. But it was hardest of all to be parted from the girl he loved with all his passionate young heart. He wrote to her in his childlike handwriting, long, ill-spelt letters in which he told her how constantly he thought of her and how much he longed to be back. He was sent here and there, to Spezia, to Venice, to Bari, and finally, to China. Here, he fell ill of some mysterious ailment that kept him in hospital for months. He bore it with the mute and uncomprehending patience of a dog. When he learnt that it was a form of rheumatism that made him unfit for further service, his heart exulted, for he could go home. And he did not bother. In fact, he scarcely listened when the doctors told him that he would never again be quite well. What he did care about was when he was going back to the little island he loved so well, and the girl who was waiting for him. When he got into the rowing boat that met the steamer from Naples and was rowed ashore, he saw his father and his mother standing on the jetty, his two brothers, big boys now, and he waved to them. His eyes searched among the crowd that waited there for the girl. He could not see her. There was a great deal of kissing when he jumped up the steps, and they all, emotional creatures, cried a little as they exchanged their greetings. He asked where the girl was. His mother told him that she did not know. They had not seen her for 2 or 3 weeks. So, in the evening, when the moon was shining over the placid sea and the light of Naples twinkled in the distance, he walked down to the Grande Marina to her house. She was sitting on the doorstep with her mother. He was a little shy because he had not seen her for so long. He asked her if she had not received the letter that he had written to her to say that he was coming home. Yes, they had received a letter. And they had been told by another of the island boys that he was ill. Yeah, that was why he was back. Was it not a piece of luck? Oh, but they had heard that he would never be quite well again. The doctors talked a lot of nonsense, but he knew very well that now he was home again, he would recover. They were silent for a little, and then the mother nudged the girl. She did not try to soften the blow. She told him straight out, with the blunt directness of her race, that she could not marry a man who would never be strong enough to work like a man. They had made up their minds, her mother and father and she, and her father would never give his consent. When Salvatore went home, he found that they all knew. The girl's father had been to tell them what they had decided, but they had lacked the courage to tell him themselves. He wept on his mother's bosom. He was terribly unhappy, but he did not blame the girl. A fisherman's life is hard, and it needs strength and endurance. He knew very well that a girl could not afford to marry a man who might not be able to support her. His smile was very sad, and his eyes had the look of a dog that had been beaten. But he did not complain, and he never said a hard word of the girl he had loved so well. Then, a few months later, when he had settled down to the common round, working in his father's vineyard and fishing, his mother told him that there was a young woman in the village who was willing to marry him. Her name was Astunta. "She's as ugly as the devil," he said. She was older than he, 24, 25, and she had been engaged to a man who, while doing his military service, had been killed in Africa. She had a little money of her own, and if Salvatore married her, she could buy him a boat of his own, and they could take a vineyard that, by a happy chance, happened at that moment to be without a tenant. His mother told him that Assunta had seen him at the festa and had fallen in love with him. Salvatore smiled his sweet smile and said he would think about it. On the following Sunday, dressed in the stiff black clothes in which he looked so much less well than in the ragged shirt and trousers of every day, he went up to high mass at the parish church and placed himself so that he could have a good look at the young woman. When he came down again, he told his mother that he was willing. Well, they were married, and they settled down in a tiny whitewashed house in the middle of a handsome vineyard. Salvatore was now a great big husky fellow, tall, broad, but still with that ingenious smile and those trusting, kindly eyes that he had had as a boy. He had the most beautiful manners I have ever seen in my entire life. Assunta was a grim-visaged female with decided features, and she looked old for her years. But she had a good heart, and she was no fool. I used to be amused at the little smile of devotion that she gave her husband when he was being very masculine and masterful. She never ceased to be touched by his gentle sweetness. But she could not bear the girl who had thrown him over. And notwithstanding Salvatore's smiling expostulations, she had nothing but harsh words for her. Presently, children were born to them. It was a hard enough life. All through the fishing season, towards evening, he set out in his boat with one of his brothers for the fishing grounds. It was a long pull of 6 or 7 miles, and he spent the night catching the profitable cuttlefish. Then there was the long row back again in order to sell the catch in time for it to go on the early boat to Naples. At other times, he was working in his vineyard from dawn till the heat drove him to rest. And then again, when it was a trifle cooler, till dusk. Often, his rheumatism prevented him from doing anything at all, and then he would lie about the beach, smoking cigarettes with a pleasant word for everyone, notwithstanding the pain that racked his limbs. The foreigners who came down to bathe and saw him there said that these little Italian fishermen were lazy devils. Sometimes he used to bring his children down to give them a bath. They were both boys, and at this time the elder was 3 and the younger less than 2. They sprawled about at the water's edge, stark naked, and Salvatore, standing on a rock, would dip them in the water. The elder one bore it with stoicism, but the baby screamed lustily. Salvatore had enormous hands, like the legs of a mutton, coarse and hard from constant toil, but when he bathed his children, holding them so tenderly, drying them with delicate care, upon my word, they were like flowers. He would seat the naked baby on the palm of his hand and hold him up, laughing a little at his smallness. And his laugh was like the laughter of an angel. His eyes then were as candid as his child's. I started by saying that I wondered if I could do it. And now, I must tell you what it is that I've tried to do. I wanted to see whether I could hold your attention for a few pages while I drew for you the portrait of a man, just an ordinary fisherman who possessed nothing in the world except a quality which is the rarest, the most precious, and the loveliest that anyone can have. Heaven only knows why he should so strangely and unexpectedly have possessed it. All I know is that it shone in him with a radiance that, if it had not been so unconscious and so humble, would have been, to the common run of men, hardly bearable. And in case you have not guessed what the quality was, I will tell you. Goodness. Just goodness. I love that because that is like O. Henry's much shorter Forrest Gump, except Forrest Gump was kind of slow and Salvatore was just ugly. I mean, there it is in the second sentence. I knew Salvatore first when he was a boy of 15 with a pleasant, ugly face, a laughing mouth, and carefree eyes. I think the adjective that goes to describe both of those protagonists is something negative, but is beautifully overshadowed by who they were to the world they found themselves in. With that, I'm going to read just one more poem. This is one of my favorite poets of all time. And it's the last rhyming couplet that might be the only thing familiar out of this entire poem. But the last rhyming couplet is, again, one of those bits of graffiti that you might see in cool places, like written on a temple wall at Burning Man. This is Ode to a Grecian Urn by John Keats. Thou still unravished bride of quietness, thou foster child of silence and slow time, sylvan historian, who canst thus express a flowery tale more sweetly than our rhyme. What leaf-ringed legend haunts about thy shape of deities or mortals, or of both, in Tempe or in the dales of Arcady? What men or gods are these? What maidens loth? What mad pursuit? What struggle to escape? What pipes and timbrels? What wild ecstasy? Heard melodies are sweet, but those unheard are sweeter. Therefore, ye soft pipes, play on. Not to the sensual ear, but more endeared, pipe to the spirit ditties of no tone. Fair youth beneath the trees, thou canst not leave thy song, nor ever can those trees be bare. Bold lover, never, never canst thou kiss, though winning near the goal, yet do not grieve. She cannot fade, though thou hast not thy bliss. Forever wilt thou love, and she be fair. And happy, happy boughs that cannot shed your leaves, nor ever bid the spring adieu, and happy, melodist unwearied, forever piping songs forever new. More happy love, more happy, happy love, forever warm and still to be enjoyed, forever painting and forever young, all breathing human passion far above, that leaves a heart high sorrowful and cloyed, a burning forehead and parching tongue. Who are these coming to the sacrifice? To what green altar, O mysterious priest, leadst thou that heifer lowing at the skies, and all her silken flanks with garlands dressed? What little town by river or seashore or mountain built with peaceful citadel is emptied of this folk this pious morn? And little town, thy streets forevermore will silent be, and not a soul to tell why thou art desolate can e'er return. O Attic shape, fair attitude, with breed of marble men and maidens overwrought, with forest branches and the trodden weed, thou silent form dost tease us out of thought, as doth eternity, cold pastoral. When old age shall this generation waste, thou shalt remain in midst of other woe than ours, a friend to man whom thou sayest, beauty is truth, truth beauty. That is all ye know on earth, and all ye need to know. Now, by the grace of Sleeping Cat, instead of playing you out on a silent meditative instrument, I'm going to see if I can move the microphone closer so that it can pick up the sounds of peaceful snoring Wolfgang.